Hello. Welcome to Revelator Alpha. Hope you're well. So this is a live show, live video, whatever, one of those sorts of things. I'm just going to set up a few things here, and then I'm going to sort of get into it. And then if you're not watching it live, then you can just watch it later. I suppose first of all, say Happy Father's Day to all of you who are in the daddy position, as it were. I don't know if it's Father's Day all over the world, but certainly here in the UK it is. And I'm sort of get through the comments as I get through them. There's nobody in here right now. I said this was supposed to go out at 8 p.m. tonight, but unfortunately I've had to change things around a little bit. So I'm not expecting many people to jump in straight away or anything at all, really. But look, if you want to come in and do a video chat and join this, then you're more than welcome to. Right at the top of the chat, so you'll see the link. So click on the link, and then all you need is like a smartphone or a laptop or a tablet, something like that, and a set of headphones or earphones, whatever, so that the sound doesn't reverb or whatever through. Anyway, so if you want to do that, fine, and let's just leave a comment, and I'll try and pick them up as soon as I can. So there's quite a few things I want to discuss today, and but I suppose I'll give you a bit of an update on the channel as well. But I'm going to be discussing a few emails that have been sent to me, some of the things that have come up in recent weeks as well, and some of the stories that I share, or some of the info that I share as well, and the way the sort of channel is changing a little bit on purpose. I purposely changed it a little bit, and I'm going to be discussing a big hot topic. Well, I don't know if it's a hot topic or not. I'm going to be talking about the difference between motorcycling perceptions, or bikers, let's say, or whatever, from us over here in the UK and let's say over in the US, or us from in Europe and in the US. And you could say the same about us in Australia, or us in South Africa, or whatever. Hey, Anton, hello. Oi, Savaloy. Yeah. I'm surprised you're in here, pal. Anyway, but look, thanks for joining, mate. So anyway, so Anton runs a football channel as well. So every now and again, I might hop on there as well, because I do love football as well as bikes, of course. And there's only one team in the land, and that's West Ham United, of course. I almost got into a bit of an argument with a chap the other day, but over football. Well, not an argument. It was more, I was putting my point across, and he had to listen. You know what I mean? But anyway, let's just talk about bikes, because that's much more interesting. Anyway, so let's just the channel. The channel, basically, I've. Hi, John. How are you? All right. Thanks for joining in New Zealand. Yeah, 3 a.m. Crikey, you're still up, man. Crikey, go to bed. No, after I finish the live show, of course. After I finish, keep on watching. But there's one of the things I wanted to do with the channel was to move away from the tech stuff, or the kind of how-to teaching stuff, as it were. It wasn't so much that I don't enjoy doing it. I do, but I think there's people have been with the soft tails, which I ride now, quite a while now. So I think it's one of those things where you can get information from lots of different places. And I always said with those kinds of videos, I'll only make videos about things that I was actually doing. I wasn't going to start stripping an engine down for no reason, just to get a video out there. So I think you take it to a certain level, and that's the way it is. That's the way it is, really. But so I thought, well, how can I keep this going? So I wanted to change the channel a little bit, and I obviously wanted to start working on other bikes and discussing other bikes. So that's kind of the way the channel has progressed, really. But I'm still heavily into Harley-Davidson. I still love talking about it. I still love finding fixes and finding issues with them, that kind of thing. So it's but there's every day I'm getting sort of 10, 15 stories from various sources about the company, about dealerships, and I get loads of emails from people as well, of different opinions. Some have great experiences, some have don't. People still ask tech questions as well, so I'm happy to answer whenever I can. But a lot of the videos I make now are kind of addressing some questions or addressing some issues that I hear about as well. So I'm kind of more into that. I'm not when I kind of first started the channel. Well, first of all, I started the channel. Those of you who've been around for a long, long time will know I started the channel was really just to record some of my bike rides, and then it kind of quickly changed into something else entirely. But I always said, I think the channel for me was always that the motorcycling part of it would be incidental to what I would actually be doing on the channel, if you know what I mean. I just happen to ride a bike. And that's it, really. I mean, it is still that, I still want it to be about opinion and about ideas and about experimenting and that kind of thing. Let me pick a couple of questions here. I don't have my license, however, I've always dreamt of a Harley, probably due to the things like Sons of Anarchy, yeah. But I'm not a need for speed, just more chilled out and thunder sort of guy. Well, no, I know you are. And your dad was a big Harley man. He's still is, isn't he? I think didn't he just recently buy one? I'm sure he sent me a message saying he just bought one. I'm not 100% sure about that. But yeah, there's a guy called Jim Baker who used to have a dealership as well. I mean, many of you always ask me, what it would be great to get behind the scenes of a modern dealership, that kind of thing, and the inner workings as well. The problem with that is that most of these dealerships now, they won't really speak to you that much, and I don't know if their hands are tied behind their back or anything, and they're not allowed to for franchise reasons, from the company. But some of them are very tight-lipped about it, and some are just not very nice to deal with, full stop. All right, he's got a Dyna Wide Glide, lovely. Does have a lot of problems with exhaust. Yeah. Well, funny enough, I changed the exhaust on my bike the other day or the other week. Got a couple of videos coming about that. I took it to a place to have its first MOT and passed with flying colours, I'll have you know. So all my little tinkering has not destroyed it. But the one little annotation on the MOT was loud exhaust. And the lady behind the counter said, well, they've all got loud exhaust. It's a Harley. I was like, well, there we go. So anyway, right. So a few questions that come through on the website, and a lot of this is to do with the future of Harley-Davidson, or some of the videos that I'm making, and the future of the Softails and the future of the Taurus. And people are asking, well, where'd you get your information from? Where are you saying that this could they could be stopped, or this could be ending, and all that kind of stuff? Preacher Adams, hello, greetings from Florida. Hope it's nice and sunny there. And the truth is about any of the information that I get, or certainly about the Softails and the Taurus, which I'm kind of discussing right now from Harley-Davidson, and what their change of status will be, or whether they'll be discontinued in the next few years. I try to make it clear that this is not fact. This is not that somebody has definitely said that they're going to stop. It's basically where lots of the videos are based on articles that I've read, or discussions that I've had, or people have sent me information that kind of indicates this might be happening, that model or that the series of bikes, so on and so forth. So it's that's where a lot of the information comes from. I've got a video coming out about this, about all the sources of information. But I don't necessarily think that Softails, for example, will be discontinued, but the models will go, definitely, and they may change in terms of what engine they use or the chassis that they use. Same with the Taurus. I'm sure they'll change the chassis at some point. But is it going to be a case where where they're totally discontinued. Well, I think I kind of make this clear. It really depends what the future holds for us all. It depends, about finances, the economy, what fuel prices are going to be like, restrictions, and environmental issues. It's loads of different factors can affect whether a company continue to want to sell a particular product, or whether they're even allowed to sell a particular product. Here we go. Anton, here we go. Look, thoughts on services direct with Harley versus external companies. This is a very interesting thing. And if you're, people watch my channel, I was always talking about this, always talking about, if you own a Harley-Davidson, and this is not just Harley, any new motorcycle, it's always the case. Do you go to the main dealer or do you go to external? And, I think if you're concerned about warranties and that kind of thing within the first couple of years, or whatever your warranty period is, most people, they kind of take it to the dealership. But I think, most people will find well, they'll either do the work themselves, or they'll try and find an independent garage to do the work for them. And they're usually a lot cheaper, because the big dealerships, they have a lot more overheads to cover, whereas the smaller workshops don't. As long as if you're trying to protect a warranty, then it really depends where you're going to take it and can they guarantee that warranty. So most independent workshops won't be cleared for warranty work, you see. So it really depends. So you've got to be careful of that. But after that, I would say, well, just go with a reputable one, and one that's cheaper. You got to think of your own wallet at the end of the day. John, you're from Auckland. Hello. I didn't know you were in Auckland. I thought you were South Island, actually, for some reason. Don't know why. John, are you happy? Let me put some of these questions up here. Are you happy with the direction of Harley-Davidson, and what do you think of the good range of Triumph motorcycles? I'm a big fan of Triumph motorcycles. Always have. I've owned a couple as well, so no problems with them. I like the variety of Triumph. I just wish I got a video coming out of this. I just wish they had an out-and-out sports bike, 1 liter sports bike. They've brought out a faired speed triple. It's got a fairing, but it's not really an out-and-out sports bike. It's sportier, but it's not out and out. Very fast, don't get me wrong, but it's not out and out. But look, it's I think that Harley-Davidson has to evolve. I think they are doing some interesting things. I just don't think they're doing them in the right way that is going to secure their future, especially with the things that are going on in the world and the way all things are going to happen. All these companies that are selling premium products are really going to suffer in the next few years, unless things turn around, or unless people are finding better ways to finance these things. But hello, sir. How are you? Hello, how are you? So I mean, it's one of those things with the the companies like Harley-Davidson. Are they going in the right direction? Well, I think if you'd asked a few years ago, are they going in the right direction? Many people would have said absolutely not. Then all of a sudden they start bringing out the Revolution Max engine finally with the new bikes, and people are kind of think, yeah, okay, we like this, what next? They bought out the electric bike. They've separated the electric into the Livewire company as well. They bought out the second electric bike. So things look interesting for Harley-Davidson, but I am concerned that they don't produce cheaper bikes. If they produce cheaper bikes, that would keep on fueling the company. Yes, they sell a lot of merchandise. Yes, they, one of their biggest earners or streams of income is from their finance. Would you believe? So it's it's an interesting thing, Harley-Davidson, which way they go. And I think they're just an interesting company, full stop. I think all motorcycle companies are interesting. And, even the smallest ones to the largest ones. I just think that the way they produce motorcycles and, but I just look at these really cheap, inexpensive bikes that are really good these days. I mean, they're not rubbish bikes anymore. They are really good bikes. I was contacted by a company the other day, see if I wanted to test ride or have delivered here 2 bikes for me to look at and feature on the channel and on the website, 2 125cc's. Well, for me, that's really interesting because I've got a lad who's going to be turning 17 next year. So, I'd be interested in see, okay, well, that's, topical for me. That's in my mind about, getting smaller bikes and getting value for money and all that kind of stuff. So there's lots of bike manufacturers out there who are producing small bikes or medium-sized bikes for cheap money, really, or in inexpensive money. So it doesn't have to be an expensive pastime. And this is what I keep on saying about Harley-Davidson. Harley-Davidson have gone more and more away from grassroots motorcycling. It's got more and more, that the new motorcycles they're producing are out of reach of the common man or woman. You have to, you have to have a lot of money put aside to be able to afford that or to get it on finance. Okay. And, whether you can afford these finance deals as well. And, many people can, but, so it's, and that's what I'm concerned about. Companies like Harley-Davidson, I just don't think they've got enough mid-range bikes or cheaper bikes. And people throw this in my face all the time. Well, you got the Softail Standard now, and that's what, 11,000-12,000 pounds. Well, that's still 11,000-12,000 pounds, or $1,000 or whatever it is over there. That's still a lot of money. Yeah. I mean, I would say if I'm going to buy a new bike now, well, another Harley, it would be a used one. It wouldn't be a brand new one because they're just way too expensive for what they are, I think. I like the diversity of Triumph models, but they're not that diverse. You know what I mean? Well, they're not. I like the diversity in their appearance, but yeah, in terms of frame, in terms of engine, most of the bikes are pretty much the same. The same with the other bikes, in their lineup. They're using the same engine. But you've got the triple or the parallel twin. So I think that's why they've been very savvy, I think, Triumph, in not actually having to produce too much tech, but what they do produce is very good. They just change the styles of their bikes, which I thought was really good. I thought Harley-Davidson was smart about the 570, but they just didn't sell, and that's the problem. I just don't think they looked very good. I think they could have been styled a little bit better. And again, it comes down to always, as I always say, it comes down to if you're going to produce these mid-sized bikes or cheap bikes, they've got to be competitive. You can't employ or add a Harley tax onto them or anything like that. They've got to, they've got to be smart about that because, and this is again where I think about Harley-Davidson as a company of the future. All motorcycle manufacturers who are producing the high-end bikes, let's say, or the really expensive bikes, unless those motorcycle manufacturers have a way of supporting that very small market with cheaper bikes, then I think they got a real risk of going bankrupt. I've got a real risk. And funny enough, I've read quite a few articles that have indicated this as well. They've indicated companies like Harley-Davidson, Indian, places like that could be making a loss. And if it's making a loss for too long, then they're never that far away from bankruptcy or being shut down or closed down or phased down. John, any news of Norton? No, I haven't heard anything at all. I mean, all I know is that they've got their 2 bikes that they're in production, I believe. I'm not sure if they're being sold. As far as I'm aware, it's still direct from the new company, as it were. But that's about it. I haven't heard anything. Yeah, I mean the dealerships. If there was any dealerships around the world that were set up, that would have been for the old company. They would have to set up new dealerships around the world. I would have thought. As far as I'm aware, it's still they've got their new V4 S, I believe, and they've got the Cafe Racer variant as well of that. And I think it's they are really, really nice bikes. So the Motorcycle Live Show. I mean, if you go onto my YouTube channel, you go back to sort of November, you'll see all little mini videos of all the different stands which I made. And I know that turned off a lot of people, but you know what? Hell, hey, what? I mean, that's what they were for. They were supposed to be for the website, but also for people just to view that. If you go there, you'll find Norton, and you'll see it. You see the bikes there. But I like Nortons. I mean, I like the older Nortons as well. And again, but they're way out of my price range. Way out of my price range. So, companies like Norton, let's say, who are just starting up again, yes, they got massive backing from Indian company TVS, who sell lots of cheaper products as well. So those cheaper products are going to be able to fund the Norton project, as it were. So this is what I keep on saying, that if they've got big backing, a company's got big backing that is able to fuel that project, fine. But Harley-Davidson don't. The only thing they've got fueling that is finance and merchandise. So they need a lot more than that, in my opinion. The electric bikes, yes, they are the future. We could all agree there to a certain degree, whether we like that or not. But they're still really expensive. The electric bicycles that they've brought out, yeah, nice if you're into that kind of thing, right? I'm not, but if you're into it, but really expensive. So it's one of those things. Norton, I think, I don't think they're in risk. They've already gone bankrupt, of course, the old company. But I don't think they're at risk, but they're at risk of not being able to sell any of their products in great numbers because of a change in environmental, a changing economic climate as well. Right, let's sorry, I needed that. Cool, talking too much. Right, so yeah, it's a source of information for the different bikes. Yeah, there's lots of videos coming out. I've got lots of videos programmed on the channel, and I've tried to break down each individual sort of source or suggestion or rumor or discussion that people have sent me as well. So yeah, hi Ed, hello. HD definitely needs to take their extra add-on fees on new bikes. It's totally ridiculous. So this is an interesting one. I'm so glad you brought this up. You're US Army, right? Or ex-US Army, perhaps. I don't know. But look, interesting. Here in the UK, and I think around Europe as well, when you go to buy a car or a motorbike, whatever, the price that is displayed in the dealership, as in that's the price of it being sold for, as in on the website, that's how much it costs. Yeah, that's what you pay, or as the maximum price. If you can get a better deal by knocking them down, fine. What we don't understand is that in the United States, I don't know if this applies to Canada, but you go into a dealership and they've got the recommended retail price from Harley-Davidson, so it might be $20,000, let's say, but then the dealership can add on even more. So I hear crazy stories from people having to spend $3, $4, $5, $7, $10,000 extra just to get that bike or just to secure that bike. And that's just insane to me, that you're paying that much more over just to get that bike, and that's the dealership that is charging you that. So I don't know, no, I'm sure there are cases where it's not that much more, and I'm sure there are cases on other types of bikes where you can buy it under, knock them down a little bit. But I hear a lot of times that people, there is the recommended retail price, or the MSRP, I think you guys call it, And yeah, and then you've got the two, three, four, $5,000 on top of to charge you on top of it. I mean, it does seem a rip-off to me. It does seem a rip-off. There are no add-on fees in New Zealand. Yeah, there's none here, John, either. I personally knew lowrider. All that feels add up to another 15. So I guess you were lucky. Okay, so you added an extra 1,500. Okay, was that for extras or just for the privilege of buying a bike? Yeah, again, so it's not all that much. And again, yeah, if you start decking out your bike, of course, you're going to end up paying quite a bit of money anyway, aren't you? But look, I mean, that's interesting. I wonder. I mean, I wonder if they'd ever try that over here. I mean, I can't see them doing it. I can't see them ever thinking, do you know what, that's the price, but let the dealerships, have a free reign to do whatever they want. I don't know. I don't think they'd get away with it. I mean, and this is, I mean, I'm going to touch on this, in the main segment, the British versus American bikers, let's say, and what the hell is going on, really. But one of the things that I always try and put across in my videos is say it really depends where you are in the world on how this affects you, a particular topic, right? But also in terms of money, well, how much you would have to pay in your country. And I always say pounds, dollars, shekels, right? It really depends where you are in the world. But one of the things over here that maybe many people in the United States and Canada don't realize is that, yeah, Harley Davidsons cost a lot of money. And around Europe, they cost a hell of a lot of money because we've got import taxes. Yes, granted, not as much as they were supposed to be, but they're still expensive bikes. So when we talk about, let's say, buying a 17,000 pound motorcycle, well, that will be the same bike in the United States will cost you $15,000 to $17,000. However, the exchange rate from £17,000 to dollars is what, $24,000 so it's substantially more. And this is exactly the same for parts, accessories, exactly the same. We just pay that much more, or we pay the same figure in dollars, in pounds as you do in dollars, but obviously the exchange rate that makes it a lot more expensive. I've never heard in the last 10 years of 1, 2, 3, 10 and more, but there's always add transportation and dealer prep that add on to $1,000. Well, yeah, I say you might not have heard it, but as I say, I definitely get emails or comments where people say they add. Sometimes they add so much more, especially when a bike is in demand. They add it on. This is the dealership system. You can get those taken off if the time and stock is right. Well, I'm sure you can. I'm sure there's always deals to be done. But are HD selling well in the UK? To be honest, John, I actually don't know. I don't know. I'll be interested. It's one of those things I'll be interested to see. I know one of the biggest sellers in this country are BMW bikes. They always have been. Well, not always, but in recent years. But Harley-Davidson, yeah, I'm sure they do sell a fair few of numbers, but I don't think it's anywhere near. My gut feeling is that it's not anywhere near what it used to be. And I don't see many new sales in the dealerships that I'm hearing about. I'm sure there are. I'm not saying they're not, but not that I've been made aware of. Now, in saying that, they haven't had a lot of stock, really, have they? In recent couple of years since the COVID and all that sort of stuff. So there we go. Oh yeah, the Pan America was about. So I am right. Why are you arguing with me? Why are you arguing with me? I was right. Look, you even agreed with yourself. There we go. Look, so there we go. Look, I'm not saying it's on all bikes, and I'm certainly not saying it's at all dealerships. But as I say, there are some people who have this experience, whereas here in the UK, we don't. There is that price, which would be like the maximum for a stock bike. I'm not talking about adding on any accessories or anything. I'm talking about you buy the stock bike. That's it, what it comes as. And then you can knock them down and you can say, you know, you can say, right, I want a discount on this, a discount for cash, let's say, or if I take your finance agreement, you know, you knock down a little bit more. I mean, it's interesting, when I bought mine initially, because I took a finance and I wish I didn't really, but I mean, that's another story. But I think that they gave me £1,000 off, and they gave me another they gave me £500 off, and they gave me another £500 off because I took their finance deal as well. So that's it. So basically got £1,000 off the price. No need to be sorry. I was only joking. No need to be sorry. Right. But anyway, you know, so look, I'm sure there's deals to be done, but I just don't think that'd be done over here. I mean, can you imagine, you know, people over here saying, right, okay, that's the price, but we're going to charge you even more. I'd be like, oh, crikey, I mean, they're really expensive anyway. But there we go. Right. Let's just get on to the main subject of this, because this is what the whole live show really is about. It's about UK versus US or USA bikers, right? And this biker term that people like to use right now. And I've noticed a few other channels which I occasionally listen to, they've kind of touched on this recently, but they're kind of talking about something completely different. So I kind of try and give an opinion about things or a view about things. And if we're just talking about bikes, and a bike is a bike, right? Doesn't matter where you bought it from. If it's a technical aspect of a bike, yes, there might be regional differences in terms of tech on a bike, but essentially, if I show you a how-to video of how to change a light, it's the same, right? I might show tell you there's a difference in the US, the way the wiring is done, but you know, it's the same essentially. However, when it comes to laws, when it comes to experiences at dealerships, at independent workshops, at you know, wherever, you know, motorcycle hangouts, that kind of thing, totally different. It's a totally different thing. Whilst, you know, everybody rides their bikes, they go to meeting places, cafes, motorcycle hangouts, motorcycle rallies, that kind of thing, there's a different attitude, there's a different vibe to it. And most of it is down to our societies are different. It's not that our motorcycles are necessarily different. It's our societies are different, essentially. And the way we think about things is different, but also what we're allowed to do as well. You know, so, you know, if we are not allowed, or nobody's allowed to do things in this country or around Europe that maybe some people are allowed to do in the United States or in Canada or Australia or South Africa or wherever, you know, wherever it is. You know, they're just different. They're just different countries. They're different mentalities. There's different rules. You know, there's so many differences. But also the attitude is completely different in times. And I lived in the States as well, and I saw a big difference in certain things. Other things it's very similar, but other things it's completely different. So when I when I hear of stories of from people talking about stuff in the United States, you know, it kind of makes you wonder, well, what the hell's going on? What you want about? That doesn't happen here. And then you get all these channels that have popped up over the last few years, where they start talking about, and you know, I kind of picked up on this months ago, well, 2-3 years ago, really. You know, I was watching a few of these channels which they talk about motorcycle life or lifestyles or motorcycle clubs and that kind of thing. And I thought, okay, fine, this is interesting, relatively interesting. I'd written a few articles touching on this in the past, and I'd spoken to a few people involved in clubs over there, and you know, this kind of stuff. So this was so I was still kind of vaguely interested in the subject matter, but I thought, okay, let's see what they have to say. But every time I watch, and every time I still have a look at now, I always think, well, the terms that you use, they're not relevant over here. The things that you say are not relevant over here. it's, and sometimes you get and I don't know if it's the way the channels have evolved, but they kind of think, well, we got to talk about something else, and they always seem to make it sound so scary that if you are just a normal individual, you're not in a motorcycle club, let's say, you just ride your bike, with your friends, or you just ride your bike. It's almost like you say, oh, you've got to be so careful about this. You got to watch what you say, or you got to do this. And you think, crikey, if that's really like the case, then crikey, you wouldn't be able to do anything, whereas over here, you know, it's not like that at all. It's not like that at all. I don't I I don't know anybody necessarily in motorcycle clubs, or hang out with people in motorcycle clubs. but it's just not like that. It's just not. There is no intimidation over here. And when I was over in the United States as well, there was no intimidation. I went to lots of places where they had motorcycle club members walking around. Never had any issues at all. Nobody looked at me funny. I was just walking around, just doing my own thing, or riding around, or driving around, or whatever it was. No issues at all. So you kind of wonder where all this stuff comes from, and you don't know whether it's the channels themselves hyping all this up, or whether it's whether this stuff actually happens. I mean, there's a channel here in the UK which occasionally I listen to or watch. And he kind of talked about this last week. The channel's called Dibber in the Wind. If you've never heard of him, it's quite it's quite interesting sometimes. But again, he kind of talks about this, but not really. He kind of talks about it in a different sort of way from the UK perspective. But he's kind of said he doesn't really want to talk about it either. And I kind of agree with him. I said, well, why do you need to talk about this really? But he made the point where he was saying that American channels, motorcycle channels, they use this word biker a lot, but they're not talking about bikers because, and I freely say on the channels that a biker is somebody who just rides their bike. That's what a biker is for me. People who ride bikes, are bikers, motorcyclists, bikers, it's all the same. It's a term at the end of the day, but people ride their bikes, they're bikers. But the Americans, especially, have kind of turned that phrase and adapted it to motorcycle club people in motorcycle clubs, clubbers, whatever you want to call it. So every time they say about biker news or bikers did this, biker that, it's always, everybody's a biker, but no, everybody's a motorcycle club. No, one individual person who was a biker who was in a motorcycle club. And that tarnishes the whole motorcycle community. And they think, well, you're always bringing up these stories about these bad stories, bad news stories, or having discussions about bad things going on in the biker world. Well, it isn't the biker world. It's the motorcycle club world for a start. And it's not the motorcycle club world. It's the motorcycle club in, I don't know, Florida or Texas or California or wherever it is. But it's not the world, because the world is completely different. The UK is completely different. Italy is completely different. South Africa is different. Australia is different. That everywhere is different. South Africa's got a massive motorcycle club scene. Massive. Right. And when I was doing the magazine years ago, I had regular contact with guys out there. Massive motorcycle club scene. Nobody ever talks about it, on these American channels, because I don't know what it is. It's not I don't know. It's not Harley-Davidson. It's not American fired. So it's, and this is where I find this a little bit strange, really. Us in the UK or around Europe, we have just a different approach to motorcycling, let's say, or riding bikes, or being bikers. Now, you could be in a motorcycle club, fine, but you could be in a motorcycle club here, and it could be a completely different set of circumstances to where it is over there. Now, you might have the same ethos, you might have the same whatever, but let's face it, being a biker, being in a club, being in any kind of organization in one country is going to be different to being in another country, because you got the laws of the land. You got the laws of the land to deal with, and some of the stuff that goes on, that supposedly goes on in other countries. I'm telling you now, it would not wash over here. It would not wash. It would. It wouldn't. Okay, put it this way: it might happen, but it wouldn't happen very long, and it wouldn't happen, for it wouldn't be repeated that often. I tell folks I'm a biker, and some respond, "Oh dear, don't hurt me." Yeah, well, do you know, again? But a lot of this, I don't blame the motorcycle channels for this as well, because TV, media, newspapers, magazines, but also the motorcycle companies themselves, especially the likes of Harley-Davidson, have perpetuated this biker, this freedom, this lifestyle, all this kind of stuff. And a lot of this stuff they stole from B-rated movies from the 1960s, those biker movies from back in the day. I mean, it's just weird. I mean, let me see if I can find it. Hold on, because I've got to show you this, because this is really funny. Wait a minute. Let me see if I can find it. I think it's the Wild Angels one with what's his name? Here we go. Right, so I'm going to try and see if I can share a screen. How do I do that? Help me out, please. Is that what it? Hold on. No, I might have to. Share a screen. Here we go. Right, hold on. So let me know if you could hear that. But look, they've kind of stolen all that kind of thing from those cheesy movies, and they've played on that. And the companies like Harley-Davidson have perpetuated this. So movies have done it. They've kind of reveled it. Anytime you were watching a film and bikers were involved, all of a sudden it was just like they're always portrayed as the bad people, the ones that are up to no good. So, and again, these motorcycle channels now, whilst they're talking about motorcycle club life and protocols and all that kind of stuff, they use biker as the term a lot of the time. And I had a chat. I interviewed a couple of these channels a couple of years ago. And when I was first starting you can go back on my channel and see the interviews, Black Dragon, all that sort of stuff. Really nice chap. But he was said at the time, the biker stuff is different from motorcycle club stuff, and but he still uses those terms, and that's the thing, they all use these terms, but it's not. A lot of the protocol stuff in the US is being spewed by our keyboard commanders to make it seem like they're part of it. Well, again, look, this is another thing entirely, isn't it? Because there's so many people who claim to know, who are in the know, who this is not just about motorcycling at all. Because I get it, because it happens in football, in sports. There's so many self-proclaimed in the know people, oh, I know this and I know that, and you think, well, where are you getting your information from, or what experiences you had, and let's say it's so easy for people to type away, tap tap tap, and all this kind of stuff, and you get all these other channels that are starting up that it's almost like they've run out of ideas, so they just keep on perpetuating the same thing, churning out the same stories. And some of these channels come and go, some of these things, or some of the subjects are come and go as well. But I just think that there is a difference between not what we ride, not necessarily how we ride, but just by normal Americans and normal British. I think we're or Australians or South Africans or French, Italian. We're all the same. We just like getting on bikes. We like riding we like riding the damn things, don't we? We like having a good time, as the video said. We just like having a good time, meeting up with friends. Look, there's no difference. That is, they say mathematics is or math, as the Americans would say, mathematics is the international language. Well, the international language is a pastime, that you all do. Riding motorcycles, no matter what it is, it's the same kind of sensation, isn't it? It's the same kind of language. we all understand that language, that motorcycling language. And it doesn't, we might, the way I see motorcycling, riding bikes, being a biker, right, is we're all speaking the same language, right? But we're using different dialects. That's what it is. That's all it is. Okay. We're just using different dialects. However, within the motorcycle culture, let's say the lifestyle, as it were, or the, everything that surrounds it, whether you're in motorcycle clubs, whether you're in an organization, whether you're, there's a, there is confusion. There's confusion in terms, and there's confusion between what applies to one country or in what applies in one state. The impression is that it can apply everywhere. Well, I suppose it can apply everywhere, but it doesn't. It just doesn't. It doesn't apply everywhere. And I know when and I make videos about this as well in terms of regional differences, but for motorcycling technical stuff, or what is allowed and what isn't allowed. Stuff that happens in California, for example, is not allowed, whereas in other states is completely allowed. So it really depends. I mean, I lived in California, by the way, and also the West Coast, Oregon, Washington. Well, that's where I kind of went up and down, really. But so it's not allowed. It's not allowed in other parts of the world. So when I hear this stuff, or when I read these articles, or when I hear people talking about, oh, be fearful of this, or you can't go into a biker bar, and or you get your ass kicked, and things you shouldn't do at a motorcycle rally, and all this sort of stuff, and I think, crikey, I mean, is it really? Are you really there trying to tell me that as an independent person, as a person that's not affiliated with any clubs, whatever? Because I understand if you're into clubs, right, then you have those rules and restrictions, those protocols that you have to follow. I get it. I understand that. It's that's why it's never really interested me. But I understand that kind of concept. So I understand if you want to get into that culture, that motorcycle club life, then you have to be aware of these things and adhere to those things. But just because you are doesn't mean I am. Just because you have to abide by it doesn't mean I have to. Now, this has got nothing to do with arrogance, because if, let's say, anybody acts, as I would say, an arse, right, and they go somewhere, start acting an arse and stop being disrespectful or whatever, then you get what's coming to you, basically, don't you? But if you're just being a normal person, just mind your own business, doing your own thing, having a coffee, having a drink, whatever, just looking at bikes, as most people do around motorcycle rallies, or listen to music or whatever, or have a drink, nobody's just gonna come up to you. You've got to be really unlucky to to have that kind of thing. If anything happen. They have that saying on t-shirts and ball hats over there. Yeah. So, oh yeah, there are things you do not do at different venues or establish. There are things you do not do at different. Well, I'm sure there are things that you do not do, but that just comes down to not being an arse. That just comes down to not being an idiot. That just comes down to not attracting negative attention. But that's the same. It does not mean that it's any different at a biker bar or biker cafe. That's the same in any place, any place where you got a group of people, and then all of a sudden, this kind of thing, it's if, as I say, if you want to move in those circles, you're going to have to abide by those rules. If you don't want to move in those circles, and I think that the impression is, from watching this stuff, that you've got to be looking over your shoulder all the time, no matter where you go. You've got to go to the supermarket. You're going to get some, a pack of oranges or something. Oh, watch yourself. There could be some bad bikers here, but they're not bikers. Actually, they're motorcycle club people who happen to ride motorcycles, and they are bikers as well, because they're going to get you. And it's just as I say, when I was living in the States, it never happened. Never happened. Never had any issue. When I saw these guys walking around, near where I lived, Never had an issue. I'll be riding around or driving around right next to them. Never had an issue. They never had an issue with anybody as far as I saw. And that's my experience of that over here as well. You never see them. You never hear from them. You never, unless you go to motorcycle rallies or if you're involved in that kind of thing. But even then, people just stick to, do their own thing. Again, unless you're acting an arse. You're acting an arse. So, but this bit, USA versus the UK, is not about motorcycle club. This is about in general. The whole thing about about the USA biker thing or motorcycle talk, whatever it is. Everything is a lot more cheap in the United States compared to us. Everything is a lot easier to access than to us. If let's say we ride a Harley-Davidson, well, I ride a Harley-Davidson, right? Well, the access to accessories over here, whilst it's plentiful, yes, it's still kind of limited. Or the alternatives to Harley-Davidson are still kind of limited. There are there, but it's expensive, you know what I mean? Or we have to order them in from the United States. Whereas in the US, you can just, it's relatively, well, I wouldn't say it's cheap. Nothing is cheap, but you know what I mean? It's a lot cheaper than it is over here. But you got access to so many things, especially the last couple of years, where a lot of these companies won't even send products over to us here in the UK as well. So we have accessories outlets from the UK, from mainland Europe as well. So a lot of that goes to there, and then we can access these parts from there as well. I've dealt with a couple of these companies before, Custom Chrome, Zodiac, that kind of thing. And they act as retailers, let's say, for those kind of products as well. But we kind of have to go through an intermediary, if you know what I mean. Whereas you guys can just go, you go for intermediaries, let's say, but it's cheaper and it's easier to access and it's quicker to access as well. But so it's cheaper in the US. The parts are more plentiful, and also because Harley-Davidsons in particular account for about 50-60% of the motorcycle marketplace. Yeah, it's dominated by it. So you can go to anywhere. Your opportunities to find somebody to work on your bike are just going to be so much more than it is over here. I'm not saying we have a problem in this country to find somebody to work on your bike or service it, if you can't do this yourself, of course. But in the United States, there's just so much more. There's so many more people who are doing it. There's so many more people riding around. And at the same time, there are so many more events and so many more biker hangouts, so many more biker pub, bars, cafes, whatever, that kind of thing, so it's a different thing, but it's also a different vibe, and it's a different way that people act, and it's a different way that people talk as well. I mean, just like I give you the distinction, the distinction between the United States and the UK. Got nothing to do with motorcycling, but I'll give you a distinction. Politics, okay? Politicians in the United States closely associate and link to religion a lot, a hell of a lot. I thank God this and God did this, so it's very closely linked in whether they actually believe it, whether they're actually God-fearing Christians or not, is kind of irrelevant because they use that link all the time. Whereas over here, you never hear it. It's never part of the same discussion. They are different discussions. Now, there might be Christian politicians and there might be very devout Christian politicians or religious politicians, whatever. Sorry, it doesn't have to be Christian. It could be any religion, of course. But they're not linked. It's a separate discussion. They don't say, and well, God save the Queen, of course. But you know what I mean? It's not they don't have this as part of their political speech or their patter, whereas in the US they do. And it's similar to what I saw over there when I was there. The patriotism of the Americans show towards the country and also their flag, right, or your flag. Over here, we don't. Well, yes, we have patriotism, of course, and we have a very strong patriotic belief, but it isn't really associated on a visible scale like it is in the United States. Okay, the only time the English flags come out here, or the Union flags come out here, is either from a Queen's birthday, like a Jubilee type thing, which you've just had, or the football is on. That's essentially it. And people put flags outside the houses or over the wall. So it's either some kind of national holiday, like a St George's Day for England, or for Wales, St David's, or Ireland, St Patrick's, or Scotland, St Andrews. See, I remembered them all. And so people will, put the flags out, that kind of thing, or it's it's some kind of national holiday or national celebration. But in terms of daily, flying the flag, as it were, and let's go Britain and do, no, it doesn't happen, and it doesn't happen around Europe as far as I'm aware. Yeah, people still feel patriotic, I'm sure they do, but there isn't this kind of close relationship between self, country, religion, patriotism, and that doesn't. Whereas in the US, that gets into the motorcycle culture, the lifestyle culture, where people are really into this, ride a Harley-Davidson because it's, it's American, it's got to be American. Whereas, again, I've made videos about this as well, and I've got a few more coming out as well. We don't have that over here. We don't have that sort of patriotic fervor that it's got to be American made. And it's nice if it is. It's nice if, but what we think about is it just good quality? Is it made properly? Where it's made and how it's made, But the thing is, we've already all gone through this in this country. Well, not we, but it's before my time, my generation, of course. But, in the 60s, where the motorcycle, British motorcycle industry sort of went on its knees, well, 60s, 70s, and the Japanese came in. So it's a different, we've had that. We've had that influx, but the Americans' motorcycle market has never really had that to seriously, well, even put out of business the Harley-Davidson, for that matter. So it's it's a different thing. Over here, yes, again, patriotism, but it doesn't. Patriotism, religion, whatever, it doesn't cross borders, as it were. Everything stays in its lane. And the country separated religion from the state many years ago. It's very much everything stays in its lane. And sometimes it gets very close to crossing over and intertwining with each other, but most of the time it does stay in its lane. However, in the United States, it doesn't. There's a lot of times where it, weaves in and out of consciousness of people's identity and, all that kind of stuff. And, say, bring this back to motorcycling, it's a similar kind of thing. There's a lot of, flying the flag for Harley-Davidson, flying the flag for American brands, flying the flag for your state as well. And we don't have that over here. So it's we don't have, so we have counties, small counties. You got small counties as well, but our counties are equivalent, I suppose, to your states, but on a much, much, much smaller scale. So, but there isn't. Well, I suppose there is a little bit of Worcestershire, or Berkshire, or Oxfordshire, or whatever, But not like Texas, or California, or Florida. It's a different vibe, Here we go. Let's get into some of these things. I hope the Queen can hit it. Yeah. Well, do you know what her mum did? Her mum went to about 101, 102. So I wouldn't be surprised there, John. I wouldn't be surprised. Ed, I had a buddy a few years back wearing the patch of a state in a state he did not live. Went to a HD shop for an issue. Next thing you knew, he was answering questions to a sergeant at arms. The guy was respectful. He explained the situation. When he was leaving a few blocks behind, he noticed an escort out of town. Okay, behind him. Yeah, again. Yeah, so again, differences. And look, that might happen over here as well in terms of that kind of vibe. But say, if you wear patches, if you you know that I think I could be wrong here, but my impression is that in the United States, people ride motorcycles in general. They tend to wear more patches than bikers over here do. But I could be completely wrong. As in outside, wearing the waistcoats, and the patches and all that sort of stuff. Whereas over here, we it happens, of course it does. But so I'm sure that might happen over here. But again, it probably happens so infrequently that it's not even a statistic. It's not even an issue. And I've got to say, every time I've spoken to somebody in a club, it's always very well mannered. I would say that, and this is what I pick up from other people as well. When they are speaking to somebody who's not in their club or in a motorcycle club, usually very well mannered, very sort of respectful. And which is fine, isn't it? Then that's the way it should be, because look, nobody wants to be going to anywhere and just be spoken to in a rude way. I don't want to go into a dealership or into a shop or to anywhere and be treated like an arsehole, really, an idiot. And basically, and that's the same with anybody. You want to meet nice people. You want to speak to nice people, have nice conversations, don't you? Well, unless you get on their wrong side or anybody's wrong side as well. It depends what kind of patch and where the patch is saying. Yeah, that kind of thing. 3-piece patchback. It's the way MC clubs work, and my buddy knows that. Yeah. It happens. There are a few important rules where the patches worn. Yeah, absolutely right. And again, this is all to do with patches and all that kind of stuff, and motorcycle club protocols and all that sort of stuff. But what I'm saying is, if you're not wearing that, if you're not wearing any of that, then you won't attract any attention. This is my point. If you're not wearing any of this, as most of us here in the UK don't, and I don't know, my impression is that in the US, when I was over there, a lot more people were wearing patches in general. I'm not talking motorcycle club patches, but patches in general. And but this was a long time ago. This is about, crikey, 25 years ago? No, how long ago? Yeah, nearly 25 years ago. So quite a long time ago now. So so things might have changed a little bit, but it seems if wherever I went, there were a lot of people wearing patches and not necessarily people just. Then again, I saw mostly Harleys when I was there, a few Japanese bikes, but not many, mostly Harleys. So, it's a different thing. But, it's, look, we've got motorcycle clubs, it's the same sort of deal over here. And you go to motorcycle rallies where there might be motorcycle clubs there, but they're not organized by motorcycle clubs. They're organized by other organizations. And look, there are people walking around with leather waistcoats or whatever, and they got patches, all different sorts of patches on there. Great, I've got no issue with that at all. I've got no issue with motorcycle clubs wearing patches, nothing at all. It doesn't bother me. It's got nothing to do with me. I don't care. But it's but it's not really an issue. Unless there's a conflict between clubs or whatever, I'm sure that happens. I'm sure that it does. It has happened. I know it's happened in this country in the past. It definitely has. But, it doesn't really happen in a day-to-day. And this is where I talk about those motorcycle channels. They tend to make this sound like it happens day-to-day everywhere. Or they use the bikers in terms of, it's applicable to all bikers and all people of all persuasions. Say be careful where you go, what you're doing. But as I say, they should append that with, okay, be careful where you go if you're wearing motorcycle club colors, in a different state or something, that kind of thing. But if you're just Joe Blogs and you're riding around on your Suzuki and you just got a black jacket or a brown jacket or whatever, and you're just riding around, you're going from work to work, or you're stopping off at a bar somewhere or a biker bar or whatever, you're just going in for a burger and fries or whatever it is and a Coke, You know, who cares? You know. But there we go. I would love to hang out at some of these places across Bond where you guys hang out, and you're right, it does seem different. Yeah, it's not better. I'm not saying it's better at all. So please don't misunderstand me what I'm saying here. I'm just saying it's different. I'm just saying the things that are discussed on these channels sometimes, or what you hear in the media, mainstream media or newspapers. Look, you know, for my channel and for my website and for previous motorcycle magazines as I had, you know, I was always tuned into news feeds, news agency feeds. And, you know, the systems have changed, but essentially they're still gathering data or news stories from all around the world and funneling them down into a one portal, let's say. So I tend to use things like News Now quite a lot, Reuters occasionally, Associated Press occasionally, and basically I just put filters in for motorcycle, Harley-Davidson, I don't know, Triumph bikes, BMW Motorrad, Ducati, that kind of thing, and it will just come in. It will just, you know, it will just feed in stories of what, you know, what is going on. Or sometimes I'll search for a particular keyword and I'll say something like, I don't know, Harley Davidson stock prices or Harley Davidson company future or something like that. And it'll, you know, bring out stories. But you could Google it as well, you know, it's Google. But some people, as they come back on me and they say, we want to know your sources. We've done a Google search and we can't find anything. The problem with Google, and this is a side note here, the problem with Google is that, well, it's not a problem with Google, it's that it's a very efficient machine, but it's by their own rules. It's by the, you know, this is YouTube by Google as well. And there are other search engines that are out there, and other search engines may or may not work with Google's data, if you know what I mean. So some might claim, other search engines might claim to be totally independent, but they're not. They actually they get their feed from Google. So it's essentially the same thing. But there are some other search engines which are different. So you can do search the same keywords or, you know, search item and in Google, and then this other search your search engine, you'll get a completely different set of articles. And when people say they've done a Google search and they can't find what I'm talking about, well, how many pages back have you gone? You know, have you just gone back 1, 2, 3 pages, you know, of all the answers, or have you gone to the 100th page? You know, that kind of thing. So when I do research of a video, that's the kind of level which we're talking about. It's not only researching on one search engine, it's how far into that search engine. It's all the news agencies that, you know, you get fed into, but it's all the other search engines that you can use as well. And also all the information that is sent to me, you know, via emails, that kind of thing. But there we go. Yes, Ed, we should come on over. I'm sure it'd be find it really interesting, most welcome, I'm sure. There we go. I've been to England. It is different. Big subject. USA has a lot of wild country. And there's hedges. Yeah, some are tall and some are short. Yeah, that's right. Well, yeah, we just don't have the big, wide open expanse, you know, that the US has, of course, because it's a massive country, isn't it? And Europe in general, they're all smaller countries relative to the United States. So, you know, you just don't have that. But, you know, so when I was doing when I was doing a lot of trail riding, and I'd say as well, because we've got these hedges everywhere, very narrow roads for the most part, especially off the beaten track, very narrow roads, high hedges. Sometimes you can't really see what's on the other side of the hedge. And it's amazing what is on the other side of the hedge in this country, because you can't really see. You don't really have a clear line of sight because there's always things in the way. But, you know, it is amazing what is behind there. Hello, but castles in the middle of nowhere, villages and little pubs with no TVs and stuff like that. I think so. Yeah, look, when I go off on my little trips, riding around, let's say, oh crikey, why have I got Apple Music come up on here? When I go on my little trips around, the it's amazing the beauty that you see. You know, you're walking around, riding around all these little villages. Yeah, it's nice. Some lovely little places, and that's what I personally my favorite kind of riding is just going off on my own little wanderings and seeing what I can find, and seeing what is out there basically. And but yeah, there's lots of things to see in any country. There's lots to see. There's lots great roads to ride, and but again, it's just different. And it's and the way we ride, and one of the big topics of conversation in this country is the weather. The weather's, uh, it's or the way it affects your bike, or the way you have to protect your bike, or the way you have to carry your waterproofs with you. Or one day it's, we've just had here in the UK, like a couple of days, one day on Friday, where it got up to 32 degrees. And it's almost like everybody went to panic stations. All the news was saying, oh, it's going to be really hot. Well, the very next day, it was cold again. It was raining. And then today, it's been overcast and windy. Still warm, but it's, windy and everything. Whereas in the US, in certain states, it can be really hot, really dry for a long period of time. Other states can be very similar to the UK. So our weather patterns kind of affect the whole country, really. There are differences, but whereas in the US, you can have vast differences depending on where you go, of course. But even in some states, in same states, you can have big differences as well. So landscape is different. Riding styles are different. I mean, that's why in America, for example, your Tourers, the Harley-Davidson Tourers, are so popular. And even though I made a video about Harley-Davidson would consider, there was a suggestion that Harley-Davidson would consider scrapping the Tourers in the future. Well, it's dependent on a lot of variables, which I said, the economic situation of at the time in the future, what people's riding habits will be, what motorcycles will be allowed to be sold due to environmental conditions, or the EPA, whatever, in the US, that kind of thing. But because of your vast road network, and because of the vast differences, distances, long distances, and their big wide open roads, having a big heavy bike, a big tourer like that, kind of makes sense. It kind of makes sense. You've got that. Whereas over here, having a big tourer, yes, you can still ride them around. There's no problem with that. But because the roads are relatively small, and we're much more heavily congested over here, in where it's in the countryside, on the main roads, or in the cities or towns, it's congestion everywhere. So much more traffic. And it's, having something like that over here, it can be right, but it's not the same effect. People might buy these bikes, might buy a Harley Davidson wanting that big American experience, but then they're saying, well, actually, I'm riding over here and I'm not getting that American experience. Saying, okay, well, I'm getting a Harley Davidson experience, right? And then you think, right, okay, I want this big tourer, right? I want a big street glide, road glide, CVO, whatever. And they might buy it and they might absolutely love it. And I'm sure they do absolutely love it. But they might also find, this bike is a bit too big for these roads, or they have to change their style of riding or where they're riding because of, because of the roads that they are riding. They can't ride it like they would do in the United States, for example, or in Australia, or wherever. I mean, let's say if you want to go to, a bar, let's say in the US, or you want to go to a dealership party or something, you might drive or ride 300 or 400 miles, or you might, 500 miles, 600 miles, let's say. You put so many more miles on your vehicles because you're just riding in a straight line, big open highways. Whereas, and you never change gear, let's say, because you're on that road, the long distance road. Whereas over here, we don't do these long distances all the time, or in short periods on a certainly not on a regular basis. And and we're constantly gear changing because of the traffic congestion. We're always on the brakes, changing gears, changing direction because of the road network. It's the way it is. Right, here we go. Not a chance HD is scrapping touring models, I should say. Well, let's see in 10 years' time whether they will or not. Can you definitely say that they will keep them? What's your evidence to support that? What is your evidence to say that they will definitely not scrap them? That's the question. If I say anything, let's say if I say Harley-Davidson will release a space rocket next week, right? And or next year, right? And you could say Harley-Davidson will definitely not, right? Now, I haven't supplied you with any evidence, but you're also not supplying me with any evidence to say that they won't. It's a futile discussion. You know, who knows what's going to happen in the future? Nobody knows. I don't know. No idea. So, like, yeah, if you ride that far in Britain, fall off the edge, crikey, we'll go straight into the sea. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it makes sense, but too many bagger owners don't use them for touring. Yeah, possibly. I mean, possibly. I would say more so, definitely in the US. I don't know about touring, but certainly about long distance riding, they probably do. But you know, there we go. The reality is you can tour just well on soft air in the US, don't it, mate? Yeah, look, I think soft air's a great bike. Not any bike. You can go touring on any bike. It doesn't have to be a tourer. I mean, that's for me. I mean, any bike can do anything. It just might be a little bit more uncomfortable. It just might take you a little bit longer. You might have to refuel it lots of times, but you can tour on any bike. Crikey. In New Zealand, very rural. I don't find many people, so bike riding is so pleasurable here. Yeah, I bet those roads are lovely as well. I bet those roads are lovely. Keep them, yes. They're too popular in the US and the UK. All you need is scooters. All righty. Yeah. Well, we do like a scooter, and the Europeans do like a scooter. That is true. They are very popular in the US. I mean, you know, I would. Look, if you had to ask me, do I think Harley-Davidson are going to change the tourers in the years to come? And I would say, absolutely, I definitely believe that they will, right? Now, what changes will they make? That's a totally separate discussion, because I think they need to, we've been saying this for years now, they need to change that chassis. The chassis needs to change. The suspension needs to change. Will they still be selling the same Taurus models in 10 years' time? You know, will they be putting different engines in these Taurus? Will they, you know, so they probably still have a touring bike, but will they still have these Taurus? That's another question as well. You know, so there's, you know, who knows? Who knows? But yeah, look, it's the same with anybody. Same with, you know, your argument for, you know, buying a new motorcycle now, really high, you know, high prices, expensive. If you've got a bike that works for you, you know, it's 3 or 4 or 5 years, 10 years old, 15 years, and it works for you, whatever it is, keep it. Keep it. You don't have to buy a new bike. Just keep the one you got. But yeah, good point. Jochen, is it Jochenseits? I kept on saying Jokenseits or Joaquinseits. Jochenseits, is it? Wants to focus on big bikes, but that is this year. Who knows? I like the spaceship idea. I've got a video coming up about spaceships, by the way. Yeah, and Harley-Davidson. See? Oh yeah, it's all up there. Hello, Nerez. How are you? Thank you for joining. But anyway, look, so there is vast differences between British bikers, European bikers, Australian bikers, South African bikers, whatever. You know, any Middle Eastern bikers, you know, Far Eastern bikers, South American, but there's big differences. But fundamentally, there shouldn't be any differences if we just focus on what is the activity and the pleasure that we get deriving from it. We enjoy riding motorcycles. We enjoy riding motorcycles either on the road or on the dirt. You know, there's pretty much the only two places you can ride them. You know, on big, wide open roads or small, you know, narrow roads and twisty roads. But essentially, it's doing the same thing. You enjoy that. Now, you know, what you want to call yourself, what you want to, sorry, let me just change. The sun's coming through now. Oh, I might have to do that. Turn up the brightness on here. Up bright. No, I don't want to do that. Sorry. There we go. That's better. Yeah, I mean, what you want to do, you know, you ride your bike, you enjoy that, you enjoy the pleasure of riding, and you know, all that kind of stuff, right? So that's the same. That should be the same everywhere. You just might do it in a different way. You might go to different places, but you know, the attitude is different. The things that are reported are different. The vibe is different from time to, you know, and yeah, the vibe is always comes down to people. Yeah, attitudes of people might be different. Saying doesn't necessarily mean it's better or worse. You know, but you know, you might come to a British motorcycle event and you'll think, oh, this is a bit boring, or this is a bit rubbish. We might go to the American motorcycle events. You think, oh, this is a bit full on, or they're a bit bold, bit brash, bit loud, you know. Whereas over here, you might be, you know, again, it depends. It depends who you are, where you're going, who you're with, what the event is. You know, so many different things. John, I also ride a scooter, and they're so much fun. Do you know what? I was very tempted a few months ago. I think I said on the channel I was going to buy a scooter. So what's the biggest difference? People are the biggest difference, and not all people. It's just attitudes of certain people and how that is now reported everywhere. How it's reported on YouTube channels, or you know, websites or whatever. It's how people talk about this stuff. And my argument has always been they shouldn't really be discussing these sorts of things on this level and making it sound as if, one, it applies to all bikers, anybody who rides a motorcycle, a biker, right? Or motorbike. Anybody rides a bike anybody rides a motorbike is a biker, motorcycle is a biker. That's my opinion. But anything that may happen in a particular area is not applicable to every area around the world. And anything that happens to a biker is, and it's but it's happening in a motorcycle club somewhere, does not mean that just because it happens in a motorcycle club, it happens everywhere. It's how these things are reported and how these things, you know. Here we go. In 10 years, all HD models will have the Rev Max in them. It's inevitable. Or they will have another type of engine. You heard it here first. That's all I will have to say on the subject. My lips are sealed. Lips are sealed. But there's another engine coming out in the next 10 years. Another type of engine. Oh, yes. Ask me how I know. No, don't ask me, because I've just made it up. No, but I certainly believe, and I've heard that R&D, there's another engine they're looking at right now. I don't think they've put any patents out yet, but I think there is another one. And actually, quite a few of the motorcycle manufacturers now are looking at different engine types. And I kind of mentioned this in another video recently. There's different types, different engines being made. Sorry, different engines being researched and developed by different motorcycle manufacturers. I'm not talking electric. I'm talking about other types. But then we'll see. I will be over when my buddy and his wife go to visit his family. Okay, yes, dual citizenship. Right. I'll hang out downtown for a few days. There's things I want to do and places I need to see. I'm sure you'd be more than welcome, Ed. More than welcome. Have fun when you're here. In 10 years, all bikes will be powered by tiny hydrogen cells and plastic frames. You know what? That might not be untrue. You never know. Resuspension lighting, there are hundreds of thousands of folk who never change them. So to say those components are crap is an overstatement. Not everyone modifies their motorcycles. I I've never said that the stock items are crap. I assume that you were saying that I've said it, but I've never said that, so I don't know where that's come from. Yes, but you're right in that not all stock, not everybody modifies their bikes. That is true. That is true. I've made very minor modifications to mine, very minor. I've never really bought it. In fact, I think if you're looking at the Tourers, for the most part, most people don't really mess with those so much, but they may do more so on the soft tails, let's say, in terms of Harley-Davidson, and prior to that, the Sportsters, of course. They try and eke out a lot more, whereas the Taurus is a much more. It's going for a much more relaxed, smoother ride. Keep the decibels low because you don't really want that loud noise on a longer distance, that kind of thing. Yeah. So, well, then make it clear. Make it clear who said that. I don't know who you're talking about, do I? I like the suspension on your low rider. You got the ST, have you, or just a low rider? Yeah, I mean the Softail chassis, I think it's a great chassis. I think that's it. Well, cheers. Thanks for joining in. Anyway, so look, crikey, I've been doing this for an hour and a half. Crikey, I was going to talk a bit more about other stuff, but look, I think we can leave it there, don't you? All I would say is that there's masses of things that are said, and it doesn't always apply. It doesn't always apply. And I hear I hear stuff, or people send me stuff all the time, and people send me scare stories, or of Harley-Davidson, let's say, or of Softails or Taurus or whatever. And I think, well, yeah, but this is just an individual case. It's not, whatever. It's not right across the board. There's people say, oh, Harley-Davidsons are terrible, they're crap, their dealerships are rubbish. So it's not across the board. It might be individual cases. Individual people might have this kind of thing as well. But there we go. Oh, Porsche developing new fuel and new engine. Maybe HG is also on the same project. They work together. V-Rod. That's all I'm saying. And good day, Michael. How are you? Now, do you know what? One thing I did forget to mention about the emails that I got. Very good point from somebody, Chris, I think his name was. He sent me an email yesterday asking about Softails, Harley-Davidson Softails, new Softails. Well, not new, but on the newer chassis, and the location of the battery, and having some problems with the batteries. And let's say if the battery goes flat, how are you going to not recharge them? How are you going to jump start them? So again, I'm going to try and do one of these searches for you. Hog. There we go. So I'm going to put that as a new window. Wait a minute. I will show you this again. Wait a minute. Get rid of that. Right, you're still there? Hold on. Let me just share this. Share screen. Yes. Chrome tab. Okay. Right. So can you see? Hold on. This. Get rid of that. Right. So this is a hog booster. Harley-Davidson also there. It's a battery pack, battery charger, and you can hook it up to your battery, right? So this is what I would call a motorcycle absurdity, right? And there's lots, and I find this is what I laugh about the motorcycle industry or the motorcycle lifestyle and thing. I find there's lots of motorcycling, biking absurdities, right? And this is a classic one for me because Harley-Davidson sell this hog booster portable battery pack, right? So you can basically jump start your bike, right? And if you've got a problem with it, and look, if you see here, I'm just trying to make sure that you can see all the elements here, and you've got all the connectors, the adapters, and also the crocodile clips, or whatever you want to call them, so you can hook onto your battery. Well, anybody who rides a Softail will know that the batteries are actually quite difficult to access. In other words, you take the seat off, and it's not like a Tourer where the battery's right there, or the older style Harleys, Dynas or whatever, twin cams or whatever, that that you'd have the battery sat right there and the terminals right there, relatively so. Or lots of other motorcycle batteries. Some motorcycle manufacturers, they make it really difficult to access that battery. So if you want to carry one of these things, you actually need another adapter, because those crocodile clips, they don't actually, you can't, they're not long enough to reach down. It's almost like you need a crocodile clip that long, and you need one that's almost like one of those electronic crocodile clips that's got a very small end, if you know what I mean. So you just pick it here and it opens a little bit there, if you know what I mean. Those are not going to reach. So Chris actually said that I'm not sure if he contacted Harley-Davidson about this problem, because he was out, I don't know wherever it was, in California somewhere, or in the desert somewhere. I can't remember where he was. The battery was having a problem, and he couldn't. He wanted to use this, but he couldn't use it. So he had to. He's got an adapter from Noco, I think it is, and Noco basically do an adapter where basically it's going to be something like that. You put on the I think what it is, it's the connector here that goes into there. I think Noco do the same connector, but instead of your crocodile clips, it's actually got rings which you actually permanently screw onto the battery terminals. So you just have this connector that's sticking out the end of the bike, and then you just literally just plug in your battery pack to it. It's a little bit like the way you would you got a separate cable excuse me, coming out for your battery tender. Yeah, similar kind of thing. You'd have this just sticking out the side of your bike or the frame. You got that. So he went to Harley-Davidson. Right, let me get rid of that now. Hold on. So he went to Harley-Davidson, I think, and he said, look, this is no good. And nobody's admitting to it. They said, no, it's fine. You can just use this straight away on the bike. And he said, well, no, you can't. You can't use it, because unless you've got tools with you that you can take off both side panels, you may be able to access the ground or negative terminal from the side, or maybe you can access it from this side or the top side with a bit of difficulty. It's not really that accessible, and it's almost like a bit of an absurdity to sell this product for Softails when it isn't really. It's a kind of universal battery pack for motorcycles and Harley-Davidsons with accessible batteries. If you haven't got an accessible battery that because you've got the shock in the way, or you've got other items over it ain't going to work, or it's not going to be that accessible. So that's why when you buy these products, just think about this and say, right, okay, if I'm going to try and use this as a battery starter and I'm riding around and I've got no tools with me, how am I going to fix this bike, or how am I going to access it? So people say, okay, well, take a few tools so you can take off side panels and stuff like that. Or you can come out as Christy and say, well, actually, I want to bought this other adapter, have it permanently mounted to the battery. So the adapter is there, and all I have to do is just plug in the battery, the whole battery booster now. It doesn't have to be a Harley-Davidson one. You could have any other one as well, I'm sure. And, and that's the thing, these battery boosters, whatever, you've got it, whatever you get for your bike that you're going to try and use when you're out on the road, doing a tour. The only thing I would say is just use them, but make them easy to use. Because if you can't use them, or you can't access a connection point, whatever, then they're basically useless, aren't they? They're just useless. But anyway, the Ed, the S, yes, lowrider S, nice. I hate the ST bags. I won't say anything about those. Well, I don't like them either. I don't like the STs. I just don't like the STs. Complete waste of time. The STs for me. If you want to if you want a bike for touring, right? Then tour. If you want a bike for performance, get do a performance. But this is like a halfway house, and it's just, I'm sure they sell like hotcakes, and I'm sure they're great bikes and all that kind of stuff. But I just don't like them personally. Do you think you'll ever get into reviewing motorcycles again, or I don't know. I don't know. Is the honest answer. I look at some of the other motorcycle review channels, and I think I get the impression that some of them are struggling a little bit in trying to review motorcycle channels. I've had my say about being fiercely adamant that I want to be and remain independent, or independent of thought, independent of opinion. And I think sometimes if you want to keep on doing motorcycle reviews, you've got to be very mindful that a motorcycle manufacturer essentially wants you to give them a positive review. Otherwise, they're not going to send you another bike again. So the only other way you can do it is, as I was doing it before, is that if I was actually test riding these bikes out legitimately for myself, then I could give you a review. So, unless that happens, I can't see it. If companies want to contact me and say, look, would you like to have this bike to review? Well, I would say yes, on the condition that I can say what I want about it. It's not going to be a fluff piece. It never would be. But there we go. My experience with British motorcycles, they were a mechanical hobby. Rent shares, not just ride. Yeah, that's right. And they're always leaking oil. That's true. And that's one of the problems about the British motorcycle industry. When the Japanese came to town, they just weren't having the problems that the British bikes were always having, and the technology was moving on, and the British bikes weren't moving on at the time. Lots of people love those bikes, and lots of people, still want those bikes now. But the fact of the matter is that, there came an opportunity to have bikes that you didn't have to constantly work on, or you didn't have to, be constantly trying to tinker with. I personally like bikes I can tinker with, but even I would say, like, I just want to get on the bike and ride. I don't want to, have issues like that. I mean, somebody asked me a question or left a comment, I think is the other day, about fixing bikes and or project bikes and everything. What do I think of them, and what do I think of the, are they worth doing, that kind of thing? I think that was the general gist of the question. And the problem with buying, and I've talked about this in the past as well, in this country, in Europe, but also anywhere, I suppose. It's about, first of all, buying the bike for the right price. First of all, if you're buying any bike that's too expensive, you're onto a loser in terms of the financial side of a project bike. Now, if you're just doing it for the passion of it, that's different. But even so, you don't want to rip yourself off, because one of the big problems of project builds is this: people run out of money, they run out of ideas, or they run out of know-how, knowledge, talent to be able to get something done. Okay. So, and they just give up. They just give up, and they give up the project. Or it just sits in the shed for 10, 15 years and they never touch it again. So that's one of those things. So if you want to get a project bike underway and done, then you have to attack it. You have to attack it. And that usually means throwing money at it. So you want to buy a cheap bike, as cheap as possible. But the problem is, if you buy a cheap bike, it's usually a bit of a nail. And it's never until you actually dig deep into a bike that you really find out what the problems are. So this last one that I just did, this little 125 fun bike that I built, right? The amount of problems that I found with it was just unreal. For a small little bike, the amount of work, the amount of the stuff that I had to do just to get it up and running again into a roadworthy condition was just unreal. Then I've had to come back and strip down the engine again, completely strip it, the engine apart, put a new gearbox in, change a few things as well, and put it back in again, just to make it all roadworthy, let's say. Again, so you spend this money on a bike, and you spend way too much money on it. Now, there are some people who can buy a project bike and be very, very lucky that they don't have to do a lot of work to it just to get it up and running. So it depends also what level that you really want to take this. If you want to restore a bike, then that can cost a lot of money to restore. It again depends where you are in the world as well. If you've got access to cheap parts and stuff like that. Over here, everything is really a lot more expensive anyway. So I think I always say to people, project builds are great. You learn so much. You remember old skills that you'd forgotten about, if that makes sense, and all that kind of stuff, or you encounter new things, because all bikes are the same, but they're also different as well. So you have different experiences, but they are an investment, and also you've got to invest in new tools a lot of the time. And sometimes there are specific tools for that particular bike as well, and you may never use that tool again. But it's the parts, it's the consumables, and everything adds up. You start adding screws, and people think and say, "Oh, a little nut and bolt isn't going to cost much," but if you're doing a lot of it, it all adds up. You think, right, I need to grease, I need bearing grease or axle grease or whatever it is. And you think, well, okay, well, I haven't got that. I have to go and buy it, and they only sell it in a tub like that. So, okay, that's another £10 or $10 or whatever it is. So all these things that you have to buy to complete or get on with the project build, you've never really kind of factored for that in the pricing. You just thought, I bought a cheap bike, I'll quickly do it up and everything. Quickly do it up, it's fine as long as you're just cleaning it all off or undoing parts, cleaning them up and then putting them back on and they work, right? But if they're broken, that means they have to be replaced. If they're not working, they have to be replaced. Or if you break them in the process of dismantling the bike, you have to replace it. So it really depends. Project bikes are great fun, but they can be really expensive. And I think it really depends, what you're buying, what you're building for a start. I have so many project builds that I would love to do. But again, it comes down to money, it comes down to time and space as well. But it's I am in the process of looking at another project build, definitely, because I've finished this one now. I mean, this is fine. Yeah, again, bikes you'd always have to tinker with, you always have to mess around with a little bit. But I think the next project build will be, I don't know, I had thought about an old twin shock, rear twin shock motorcycle, like a 300 400cc, something like that. I'd love to do a Harley again. I'd love to do a hardtail frame again, to be honest with you. But again, it's one of those things, and I think there's an old saying over here. You say if you can do any kind of bike or any kind of car restoration build, project build, buy the best one that you can. Buy the very best one that you can. Never buy the cheapest, never buy the one that requires all the work doing to it. Just buy the very best one that you can, because all the problems that will come up that you hadn't factored for are going to be more than enough to deal with. If you've got to basically, if you pay, like say £1,000 or dollars or whatever it is for a POS kind of bike, then that's just £1,000 or dollars, whatever, down the drain. You might as well just throw it away, because if it's not, let's say if the frame is twisted or the forks are bent or this kind of stuff, well, those are all junk, so you're gonna have to throw those away. So you're gonna have to spend all this extra money. Whereas if you bought a bike, the same bike, for let's say $1,500 or pounds, whatever, and it's perfectly running, well-running bike, then actually in the long run you'd save yourself a lot of money. So let's say I bought this bike for just a few hundred, for £500, was it? Yeah, something like that. Well, I put another nearly 1,100 into it, so it's 1,500. It's not worth 1,500, nowhere near. So it's, these kinds of things you've got to think about with project builds. I think, always go in eyes wide open, but always, always be realistic about these things as well. What you can do, what you can't do, and when I'd say about a project build, I would say if you're going to do one, do something that's relatively simple. First of all, do something that is a renovation job rather than a custom bike build, as it were. Get used to taking bikes apart, putting them back together again, that kind of thing. As in the way you bought it, you're just taking it all apart to clean it all up, and put it all back together again. That would be the best project bike, I think, to start with, or to do. I think they're fun project builds, actually. But if you're really talking about customizing a bike, then yeah, you need another level of that too. You need the tools and the experience, whatever. And then if you don't have the experience and you don't have the tools, then you have to take your bike or the parts elsewhere to have them fixed, or you need welding doing and all that kind of stuff. Well, again, that costs a lot of money. So you've got to be factored for that. But anyway, listen, I'm going to leave it there. I hope you've got into that a little bit. But as I say, there's I get lots of emails about similar kinds of things as well. And some of the things that I hear about, UK biking experiences and US biking experiences, I think, well, there's differences. Sorry, there's similarities, but there's also lots of differences. And most of these differences about what people are saying most of the time. Everywhere else is exactly the same. But anyway, listen, thanks for joining, and it was fun. I quite enjoyed this live show as well. But I'll see you again. Lots more videos coming, loads and loads of videos coming on a daily basis. And if you like these live shows, then keep on sending us questions, and I'll bring them up on another video or another live show whenever I do them next. All right, cheers, and thanks for all your support. Ta-ra.